Hi everyone, welcome to eLearn Chat, where you always learn something new. Joining me today is our co-host. She's coming to us from just outside of London in her own personal jail cell. It's a very nice jail cell she's in, and she should be enjoying it. I've been to her jail cell. It's quite lovely. And it's Leslie Price with www.learnappeal.org.uk. If you haven't checked that charity out, check it out. You may be in that boat real soon where we're all going to be offline. Who knows? And manning the video switcher is Harold Muliati. I'm Rick Zanotti, and we have back with us today Professor Steve Wheeler, who's back for his second visit. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Digital learning development, media development, corporate video, management consulting, and more. Visit us at www.relate.com. Thanks. And we are back, and joining us in that we call center position of power, we've got Professor Steve Wheeler back on again. How are you, Steve?
Hi, Rick. It's great to be back. It's lovely to speak to you again. I think I've missed talking to you. I've had do a lot of these webinars, but nothing quite like this, I'm afraid.
Well, great. And you know what? We have to thank Steve a lot for this because it was last minute. We were, he was on the list for later of people that we were going to call, but we went through the list of now and there was no one. And Steve said, I'll go on. And he's doing very important work right now, trying to help out his country and his communities, which we should all be doing in one way or another, because you can't expect politicians to fix this, and they won't. They'll just screw it up some more. Anyway, here we are.
It's not, and I should add, Rick, it's not just his country. What Steve is doing is going out worldwide.
Even better.
So Steve is actually providing resources to teachers, parents, kids,
nice,
worldwide, totally and utterly free of charge.
No, and you know what's nice? We always talk about how people feel that they can't make a difference, they don't make a difference. It is amazing if you put your mind to it and your spirit to it, you can make a huge difference out there. So Steve, kudos to you. Keep it up, and let's talk a little bit about what you're doing and what got you doing this?
Well, I mean, thanks, Rick. Thanks, Leslie. I mean, it is going out worldwide. Yeah, definitely. This is a platform that I'm using, which is quite new. They approached me back in February, just as all this was blowing up, and they said, "Look, can you write us some content for the ZillLearn platform?" And I said, "Why is it called ZillLearn?" They said, "Well, it's zillions of ways of learning." And we're getting people from all over the world to come in, and experts and teachers and professors and so on to come in and write short courses, which we can then make free to anybody who wants them. And it's about following your passion. It's about finding ideas that you want to learn more about, or ideas you want to teach about and share your knowledge about. And so ZillLearn came to me, and I was not convinced at first, but then this whole COVID-19 business blew up. And I was just saying to you earlier on before we went on air that I have a younger brother. He's my only brother. He's Andy, and a big shout out to him. He's one of the frontline workers. He's a registered nurse working here in Plymouth. Gets his mask and his visor on every day and his gown, and he goes in and he treats patients. And his wife is also on one of the COVID wards in Plymouth hospitals here, and they're dealing with very, very ill people. And I'm thinking, wow, this is an amazing thing that they're doing. They're heroes. These guys are just outrageously great, heroic, brave, courageous people. What can I do? I'm stuck here at home, in kind of quarantine with my wife and my son, and we can't do anything. And I thought, actually, I can do something, because there's a lot of teachers now who are having to. They're being compelled, they're being forced to teach online because the schools are not closed down, but the schools are not as open as they normally are. They're looking after some kids are key workers and so on, but generally speaking, they're having to teach online. And there's a lack of knowledge because they weren't prepared for this. And I thought, well, here's me with something like 40 years of experience in educational technology, somebody who's worked in online environments for the last 20 years as a professor of learning technology. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, maybe I can do something here. So I wrote a course to see what it would look like, and I posted it. And it was a course really about personal learning environments. And I put it up, and people started to come on board and start reading it and using it. And I thought, I'll write a second one. And I think to date, as of this morning, I have 5 courses up there now on zilllearn.com. And you should check them out, because there's some really great courses out there besides mine. You know, mine are just about education, but there are others about, you know, well-being during the COVID pandemic. There are others about, you know, eating healthy and drinking, you know, wisely. All sorts of well-being and health-related courses up there already. So it's well worth looking at that platform. It's all totally free.
We have I know what it's like to have people on the front line, Steve. My niece is a paramedic, and her partner is a paramedic, and my niece has had to make a very, very difficult decision because her son has got a very rare form of leukemia. And so she is having to self-isolate with her son, because her son is on, you know, trials that are being actually not being funded by the NHS, actually being funded out of the US, Rick. And she just feels that, she just says it's, she said, I'm here with my son. I know I should be here with my son, but I'm not doing what I should be doing. Yeah. You know, she's not there on the front line. And my daughter is a teacher and is on maternity leave. And my daughter is also saying, I'm not on the front line either. And that's when I then sent my daughter the links that you sent through, and she just went, wow, Mum, these are brilliant. These are amazing, because they actually also help the teachers. So it's not just for the children. The guidance in it helps the teachers and the parents.
Well, that's who it's aimed at, really. It's aimed at educators and para-educators all over the world. Anybody who who has to do this online pivot, as we call it, and suddenly face their class through a screen. And I've always said that, you know, teaching online is a completely different set of pedagogies to teaching face-to-face. You have to think of a lot of different nuances and different ways of optimizing the technology. So that's what these courses are all about. One of my most popular ones is called Supporting Online Learners. Each of these courses probably take less than an hour to do. There's a quiz to help you to remember things. There's a video at the start. There's a lot of text, and there will be hyperlinks eventually as well, I'm promised, and hypermedia. But generally speaking, it's a self-contained course, and you can do any of these courses in any sequence, and they will help you to gain better knowledge and maybe even some skills in a new area that maybe you're not familiar with. And, you know, all of us suffer from this kind of guilt. I'm sat there watching, you know, people doing very heroic things, people doing amazing things. I've always said that these kind of crises bring out the best in people. They bring out the worst in people as well. I've seen politicians saying some really, really stupid things, doing some stupid things around the world. But I've seen, you know, more importantly than that, let's dwell on what people are doing that's really great, and is kind of helping people in the community, people supporting each other, and people really kind of pushing the boat out for each other in ways that are, you know, really helpful.
And it's very interesting. People are discovering that it's not that easy to teach online. It does take some training. It takes a different view of it all. And frankly, as great a job as teachers do, they're not used to teaching online. It's a very different environment for everyone. We go through this in the corporate world, that a lot of people think teaching online is easy until they try it. then they go, it's hard. It's a lot of work. And it is a lot of work. And you've got to work things that you normally don't have to, like your voice. You have to work your perceptions of what's going on in a quote unquote virtual classroom. How do you keep things moving? How do you make things happen? It's a little tricky. And big corporations right now are going, hi, this is not easy. All of a sudden we have 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people or more at home working remotely, trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we do this? Bandwidth is slow. It's not as fast as we thought it was. And a lot of issues, and they can all be overcome, but we're talking, we've only all been doing this for about 3 to 4 weeks. It's real interesting what's happening out of this. Now, I was listening this morning. There's a report that said a lot of people, now not everyone, it was about 50% were saying that their personal lives have gotten better, their family relationships, the ability to work with their children. They're starting to do homeschooling as well, which they've never done. And they're thinking, wow, this is really different. And they're starting to also evaluate some of the things that they're teaching, that the schools were teaching versus what they're teaching. It's an interesting thing that's happening out of all this, and Lord knows where it'll wind up at one point, but it's definitely interesting. And what's your response or feedback been as far as teaching people online? You've been involved obviously with learning for a very long time and learning tech. What's your experience right now with real neophytes who've never done this before? How are they taking to it?
I think that lots of teachers, as you say, are struggling because we never provided that kind of training for teachers. In my own university, when I was teaching there, we did. I made sure there were modules or sections within the course of initial teacher training, teacher preparation, where we would provide certain amounts of input about online learning and about virtual classrooms and about things like, using social media and smartphones and so on. So teachers that came through my kind of area of teaching actually probably are prepared, and I've got a whole army of students out there over the past 20 years who know a little bit about it. But I would hazard a guess that not many universities have focused on it to a great extent in their teacher preparation, initial teacher training. So I think teachers will struggle. But let me just say that yes, it's different in many ways. It's not all about video. You have to prepare content. There's no way on earth that you can get away with taking traditional content and traditional teaching and just shoving it straight across into an online environment. It just doesn't work like that. So don't even try. You'll have to think of a new way of doing it. Certainly take the content, the context of it, the knowledge, and apply that in an online environment. But you need to, again, present it differently. You need to engage students in a different way. You need to manage behavior in a different way. You need to present yourself in a different way. There's a whole range of things that need to be thought about and worked through before you can actually successfully develop and deliver that kind of learning.
It's interesting that you mentioned context there, Steve, because as you know, I worked for government for a long time, and one of the things when one of my jobs was to actually, along with various other people that Bob Harrison, Tony Park, and I can go on, ad infinitum. Donald Taylor, I can just go on. And our job was to try and introduce it into schools and colleges and work-based learning, and we were stopped. But, put that by the by, one of the things we always said, it's not that content is king, it's that context is king. When you go online, it's context that's king. And it's interesting that you actually mentioned that now.
Well, my maxim was always content is a tyrant. Context is king.
Yeah.
I think it was Bill Gates that originally said content is king,
when we're
but
talking
he probably
about
didn't know what he was talking about at the time.
I think he still
But when
doesn't,
you're
but that's
talking
another
about
issue.
context, can you try and explain, because some of the people watching might not understand the difference between content and context. Can you possibly try and find a way to explain it?
Well, I'll try. Content for me is anything you can consume. So it can be text, it can be video, it can be audio, it can be a multimedia combination of those things, and that's what most people do. But recently, we've been able to delve deeper than that by using hypermedia and hypertext. The web allows us to do that. We can write to the web with the ZillLearn content that I've created. Yes, it's mainly text, but increasingly there's going to be activities within there. It's an evolving thing. It's organic. Never see online content as completed. See it as a work in progress, which can be developed and can grow organically, can evolve, if you like. So the context of it is firstly the evolving nature of it, but secondly I suppose the application of it to real world learning. What I've done in previous online content development is I've created contexts within which students have to struggle. In other words, they have to really work hard, they have to think hard. It's not just consuming content anymore, it's about engaging people with it and then allowing them to struggle for a while so that they then have to think harder and deeper and wider around what they're learning before they can apply it. So I would introduce maybe a problem or a challenge for them. And that problem may be an ill-structured problem. It may have some parameters described, but others they have to work out for themselves. And in that very context of lack of structure or lack of knowledge or lack of information, they have to struggle with that. And then they will, because of that, there's a beauty that emerges from that, and that is that they can put their own context, their own background information into it and work it out for themselves, what it means to them personally. And I tell you, I've had primary, secondary and tertiary teachers all together in the same working space, online, working together, working maybe at a master's degree, and each of them come up with a different solution to the same problem. And the beauty arises when they argue about whose solution is the best, because they've all got aspects that they can learn from each other from. And that's where the kind of, I suppose, the context arises from. If that doesn't make sense, then let me know and I'll try and explain more. But I think that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and one thing you said that's really.
Could you maybe show us? I mean, I'll let Rick finish. But when Rick's finished, I was just wondering if you could maybe share some of, we've got you on Skype, so maybe you could screen share. But I'll let Rick ask his question first.
Well, it was kind of more of a statement, and that's what Steve's saying is so damn important, and that's he's not making it easy for them. If you have nothing to challenge your brain just becomes mush. And it's so important to keep challenging them, make them think a little bit, make them fight a little bit for what they think, why their reason's better. Okay, you have a solution. Why is your solution better than that person's solution or this one's? And it's not something to be mean or argumentative about. It's trying to learn how solutions come up with, or how they've come up, and what makes it better, what makes it worse, why is this a better solution than another solution? And if you're in the real world, you've got to make decisions. I've got 10 solutions in front of me. Which one is more economical, maybe more costly, maybe better, maybe worse, maybe has better spread whenever it goes out? So there's a lot of things there. But it starts with a challenge. If people give up instantly, they never learn how to do anything. They just give up. And in today's day and age, I think there's a lot of spoon feeding in school. Just here, open your mouth. They throw it in and go, you're now fed, you're educated, have a good life. And you're not capable of thinking. Colleges don't teach critical thinking anymore. So as a result, people come out with opinions, have no way to base them on anything. Science is a joke nowadays. Nobody knows anything about science. They just make it up. It's how you talk to people and say, they go, carbon's bad. Which carbon? Carbon? What kind of carbon? Solid carbon? Okay. Do you know what carbon dioxide? No. Okay. This is common. This is people talking without any idea what they're saying, and probably more in the States than anywhere else. We have a lot of that. But I suspect you guys have some of the same issues that we do in education and everything else. But it's just, there's just not a lot of adversity thrown at someone. So they never learn. They never learn to solve a problem because they're not given the opportunity. They're not put there. So Steve, I think what you just said is so right on in terms of message and in terms of getting them to actually progress in something, to learn something, rather than just sit there with their mouths open. Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is, Rick, we talk in L&D about learning transfer, don't we? We talk about trying to move learning away and learning and development away from the classroom and into the real environment where people are actually working. And I think that's happening a lot now in modern L&D and contemporary L&D. Yep. You're seeing the classrooms being less and less used because, let's face it, that's an out of context situation. You're learning almost in an abstract way and not being able to apply it instantly. I remember many years ago, probably about 20 years ago, I was doing satellite training where we used satellite TV to beam directly into hospitals for medics to actually learn new techniques, and we'd have guests in the studio talking about surgery or medicine or whatever. Yeah. And the medics would come into a room that was just down the corridor from the ward where they were working, and they'd learn something, and then they'd go straight back and practice it immediately. Try it out on the patients to see how well it worked. And I think we can do the same a lot more in L&D and also in schools. We've got to bring the context back into education. What you talked about when you said that we spoon feed children, we spoon feed adults as well, and basically what we're doing is indoctrinating them. We're instructing, we're not educating. The word education, sorry to use the Latin here, but educere, from which education comes from, it means to draw out from within. It doesn't mean to spoon feed or to indoctrinate or to say this is what it is. It's not about giving facts, it's about letting people learn for themselves through creating the environments that are conducive to that type of learning. And situated forms of learning, and here I mentioned maybe people like Jean Lave and Etienne Wenger, the idea of situated learning is where you're learning in a context that is completely valid with the way you're applying that skill or that knowledge in the next few minutes. That's learning transfer in a nutshell.
Right. And one thing we've kind of obviated nowadays, whether it's corporate, whether it's in schools, we don't do a lot of mentor training anymore. We could learn so much more from a mentor who knows something, a professional who's very skilled at it. Like you said with the doctors, they can go in and watch another doctor doing something and go, and then they run off and do it. Well, actually, this COVID virus is a perfect example of that. The idiots, and I'm sorry, I'm going to call them idiots, the WHO, the World Health Organization, really comes up with stupid things. Say, you must use ventilators. There is no cure, only ventilators. So 80% of the people on ventilators have died. And the doctors, and really the doctors are the true heroes when they come to the doctors and nurses say, this isn't working, forget it. And they threw it out. I know in New York and in other places, I've heard some in London, everywhere, they're saying, no, it doesn't work. The ventilators are killing people. So the doctors say, we don't care what your protocols are, you need new protocols, and here's what we're using. And the politicians are going, no, don't do that, you must use They don't know anything about medicine. So you have these surreal concepts out there that don't work, and they're being so rigidly enforced to basically create more harm with no clue of what's going on. The nurses and doctors will tell you, this doesn't work. Why are we doing it? Because they told us to. And now we're not doing it anymore because doctors want to save people, not kill them. And it's really interesting. And that's kind of my in-context example, what's going on at this moment with a disease where doctors are given the wrong protocols. And because they're not just idiots, they're saying, no, wait, this isn't working. I'm watching my patients die. One doctor in New York came on YouTube and said, I've killed a lot of patients. I don't want to. That's not what we want to do. We want to save them. We're changing our protocols right now, regardless of what they're telling us, and it's working. And so that happened in Los Angeles, too. The people say, the protocols didn't work. The ventilators work for some things, but they're not working for this, and they're ripping the lungs to shreds and damaging them. Fascinating stuff.
Can we, before we go on to all the politics of
No, we can get off of that. It was just,
Could Steve maybe share his screen and share some of the
Absolutely.
things he's been doing? Because I say, my daughter just was blown away, and she sent it through to her senior leadership team, and she sent it through to other teachers who sent it through to their leadership teams, and they're now using it.
That's
I don't know
great.
what your figures are like, Steve, but I would imagine they are growing considerably.
Well, bear in mind this has just started. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now at the most.
Yeah, I know.
less
It's
than that.
only a
Some of
few
the
weeks.
modules are only been up for a few days, so I don't know what the figures are. But you'll probably see them when we look in a second. I think one of them's got 40 users on it at the moment, which is kind of. It could be better, but also bear in mind this is evolving. So as I said before, these are organic courses, and I'm going to go in regularly and keep updating them as more ideas come to me and as new information comes through, and also as ZillLearn begins to develop its capabilities more. So, for instance, at the moment, there are no hyperlink capabilities in there, but there will be in a few weeks. So I'll be going in and creating hyperlinks and hypermedia connections where people can go down and drill deeper from what I've written to what else they want to explore. So I don't know. Let me I'll just share what I have
Yeah, you just
here.
share screen. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Not
You
yet.
can only see your face, my lovely.
Hasn't yet. Oh, do you have two monitors?
No.
No. Okay. So it's not at this point. It's not showing it yet.
No,
Okay,
it's not showing it.
Have you clicked the little 2-screen icon down at the lower right?
Let me go back into
He only has one screen.
to where I was before.
No, that's what the screen share
Oh.
button is.
And screen sharing options. Okay, because I'm in Skype as well as vMix, so that's interesting.
Yeah, you maybe need to come off. You maybe need to come off vMix and just stick in.
Oh, and
Skype.
actually, you're not on vMix. I think you're on Skype, right?
Am I?
Yes, you can close out of vMix.
You can close out of vMix. You're actually not on there.
Okay, so you've got me back. Let me just try again to
just
share the
screen
screen
share.
this time using. I don't know if you can see now.
Not just yet.
No, it's trying to, but it's not getting there. Are you on a Mac or PC?
I'm on a Mac,
On a Mac,
MacBook
okay.
Air at the moment. Let me just see if I can find it now.
Now we
Oh,
see it.
hold on.
There you
We've got it.
Yeah.
It
We've
came
got
up.
It now, Steve.
This is the front page of just one of the. This is the latest one. I only posted this about an hour ago.
Yep, it came up.
So it's not really used this yet. But you can see here that what we're talking about with digital identity is I'm exploring the psychological ideas behind this, the different identities we employ, I suppose, when we go online. So it's not just about our self-concept. It's about how do we represent ourselves online in different ways. What about things like personal branding? This is not just a marketing tool. This is about how do students represent themselves online? How do they switch identities as they change between social media platforms with different rules, or they go online to a VLE? How do they behave? And how can we, not just predict that behavior, but kind of, obviate it? Because there are problems when you have these kind of behaviors, and people can get into all sorts of nefarious stuff like sexting and catfishing and so on. And all of these things derive from people's ability to switch identities and to fake their identities and to be, I suppose, to do what they call in psychology. It's I'm sorry, I've forgotten the word. And the ability to kind of go to become anonymous, I suppose, really,
Yeah.
and then to perform acts that they wouldn't have done if they were known. So there's a whole
Right.
range of things here that teachers need to know about when they've got students online about digital identity, and I hope that's kind of a little bit of a taste of it. I mean, there's a video here which you'll probably see. Shall I play the video?
Sure.
Yeah.
Welcome to module number 5 in the digital learning series. This one is about digital identity. Now, identity is a fascinating human characteristic. It has so many variables, so much complexity about it, and it's fascinated me for ages as a psychologist. And when you think about human identity, the sense of self and the sense of me being different to you and distinct from everyone else. That idea in itself runs through everything we do as people, and it's quite important to education. But when it comes to digital aspects of learning, then it gets even more complex, and that's what we're going to be looking at in this module. I'm going to be drawing on a number of theories, Goffman's theory of drama, and how that can be used to help us to understand how we present ourselves in everyday life, Engerstrom's activity theory and how identity relates to other aspects of what we do in life, and also various other things like personal branding, fake identities, and switching identities in different online environments. It's going to be a fascinating trip. I hope you can join us. Welcome to the module. So there we are. I hope you heard that.
Yeah, we did. I like that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there, Steve, because what people don't often realize when they go online is that they, in the same way as when you go to a party, think of the big gatherings that you and I have been to. And I'll never forget us going to that bar where this student that was your ex-student that was then a volunteer with us went, "Oh my goodness, it's Professor Wheeler, it's my professor, he taught me." And there's me and Steve at the bar going, "How's it going, Steve? You all right there, Steve? Are you all right there, Leslie?" But to this girl, you were her professor. And that was such a different identity to the one that you had, both with me and also with other people in the room, some of whom you knew, some of whom you didn't know, but a lot of people don't realize that also happens online.
Yeah. Now, Steve, you were a musician, if I recall correctly. As a musician, it's all about the tempo, the beat, keeping it going, moving. Have you thought of putting together, or maybe you have, I haven't seen what your curriculum is yet, but in online learning, that tempo, the beat is almost more important than anywhere else because you've got to keep it going, and it's a little harder because you do more as a teacher. You've got to be constantly moving things along. Have you thought of applying any of that, the music background, into the learning theory that you're working with timing, tempo, making things happen, crescendoing, bringing it down, giving people a time to get excited, then kind of bring them down a little bit, make them calm down, then bring them back up again with something else? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I've always done that without really thinking about it, Rick, because I've been a musician since I was 15, which is only about 10 years ago now. And so at the time, I learned guitar. I taught myself guitar. Yeah. And then a few years later, I taught myself piano and keyboards and a few other instruments, and then started producing music as well as performing it. And writing it at the same time. So I learned a lot about tempo. But I would suggest to you that online learning is more jazz than it is rock.
Probably. Yep.
You do a lot of extemporization in jazz, and you do a lot of, kind of ad hoc stuff in online learning as well. So you're having to think on your feet a lot. I remember someone asking me a question once during an online webinar. It was only about 2 weeks ago. I do a lot of these on Zoom and Skype, and he asked me a question, and then it was something about, how do you get students or how do you get people in workplace to adopt new ideas? And I was about to launch into a diatribe about Rogers' innovation curve and all that stuff that you get when you look at the theory behind innovation curves and adoption of technology. But my dog started barking outside, and I said, well, one dog barks, they all bark. And he got it. He knew what I was saying, because then I was able to elaborate and say, look, come on, if you get one person who's an opinion leader to adopt that idea, that innovation, then the rest will follow. And that was me extemporizing, really, and kind of taking to kind of grasping what was going on around me and using it. And you can use anything to illustrate a point. If you're a good enough teacher, if you're an online teacher, you're more constrained because you're within an environment that's very controlled. and you're mediating all of your communication through that technology.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful how you mediate that communication. There are reduced social cues. There's often issues with latency and the lag. There's often issues with vision or sound. And you have to kind of manage to get by all those, and you have to extemporize. So I'd say it's more of a mixed tempo that goes up and down, and it goes from 3/4 to 4/4 to 6/8 and so on, rather than a 4/4 time all the way through.
Yep.
And you also have to have, and you also need backup. And I know you've got Dawn there.
Well, no. Also, I noticed when you played part of the course, your video was very dynamic. It was very lively, and did we get disconnected?
Oh, he just got disconnected. Get him back here.
The tempo took it away.
Happened.
He got disconnected.
Disconnected. Never mind. We're probably out of time anyway.
Just about. But that was really good.
Yeah. Oh, so as I say, Steve is a really good friend, and not only a good friend, but he's somebody that knows so much.
Mm-hmm.
He's been working in the area for so long.
Yep.
And although to a lot of people it might appear that he's just, talking on the hoof, he's actually done so much research into all of this.
Yep. No, you can tell.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is one of the. I just thought it was brilliant that he could be on the show with us.
Oh no, he's fun. I enjoyed him very much last time.
He does live down on the south coast. So, and with all the COVID crap and the, technology maybe not performing the way it should do,
right?
It might just be that he's got cut off.
Yep, he did. We'll send him a note afterwards. But anyway, folks, we hope you enjoyed the show today. Professor Wheeler is really a good guy, and we'll have to get him on again and go into more of this. And we'll have links below. Harold, do you have the link for that Zillow Learn? Yes, I do. Okay, so we'll put the links to his courses below. And excuse me, please go and take a look at them. Take them. I'm actually going to take some of those classes. I find him very fascinating, and he's a very good teacher. And he's a psychologist too. So he puts it all together: musician, psychologist, educator. It's a good combo.
Yeah.
Very good combo. And very nice person.
Brilliant. It's a brilliant combo, and I say I'm just delighted that he was actually able to join us today and share what he's doing to help other people when we're going through such very difficult, challenging times.
And we haven't seen the end of these times yet. We haven't even come out of it yet.
No. And what Steve has decided to do is Steve is paying forward. So he looked at what his skills were, and he's now doing something. As he says, his brother's on the front line, and Steve is now using his skills to help other people who may be on the front line or back line or wherever.
And you said something important. He's paying it forward. A lot of people talk about paying it forward. It's not about talking about, it's doing it. And that's really the difference. What are you doing? In what way? How are you paying things forward? It could be simple acts of kindness. It could be a lot of different things. Pay it forward.
Yeah.
That means do something not for yourself per se, do it for others, and it's amazing how it'll benefit you too.
Yeah.
Simple things in life. Anyway,
run, somebody somewhere someday will benefit from what you've done, and they will then pass it on to other people. And
hey, I'll give you a quick story, a very quick story before we leave. One time when I was in college, this is back around 1973, I think it was my second year of college, and I was I had just visited my girlfriend at her house near the college, and I was in my car. I get out to the middle of the street, my car just stops. It was an old car, a typical college student car, not a lot of money in it, and I couldn't get it to work. So I started pushing the car towards the curve because I was in the middle of, fortunately it was a side street, but I was in the middle of the street. And there was a gentleman who drives by behind me. And he was a black guy, just to say. He was African-American or black, whatever you want to call it. Not that it matters. But in those times, people were still much more into that. So I never cared about color. I really didn't. I went to a black high school, so I could care less. And he gets out of the car and helps. He was an older man. And he helps me push. And we got the car to the curve. And I said, hey, can I do anything for you? And he says, you help someone else out like I helped you. See you later. And I just went, wow. Yeah. And, you know, it's sort of like, you know, I had that idea in my mind anyway, but he cemented it. It's like, I don't know who he was. I never saw him again. And I thought, wow, that was a lesson for life that you don't forget. He just said, you do something to someone else to help them out. That's all. Yeah. And it keeps going. And if we can do enough of that.
And that's paying forward.
It is. That's paying it forward.
Paying it back. It's not about paying it back. You pay it. It's about paying. Yes, by all means, pay back. Yeah. But the most important thing is you pay forward.
And don't expect anything in return. If you do, it won't happen. Just do it because you want to, because you feel it's right.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing, but it works.
Yeah. To me, it does.
Leslie, thanks for getting Steve on today, and let's get him back on again. Maybe next month we'll bring him back in and see how he's doing with the learning, and it'd be fun to catch up with him and see where this is evolving, because I can tell he's excited by it. So
he is, and he's such a as I say, I've known him for quite a long time, and he is just such a lovely guy and very, very, very well respected within our industry and our community.
Yeah, that's great. Anyway, all you folks in the, wherever you're watching this, whether it's in a chat room or later on at home, we hope you're getting through this time well, and we hope everything goes back to normal for you and everyone else soon. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Thanks.
Take
Bye,
care,
Leslie.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.